Now the words had all been spoken, somehow the feeling still wasn't right, and still we continued on through the night, tracing our step from the beginning until they vanished into the air, trying to understand how our lives had led us there. How did we get here? How did we get here with this AI stuff? I'm going to make some coffee and then I'm going to start, because in the night I woke up with some other thoughts about this AI thing. And if you haven't watched my other videos about AI, the main one was yesterday, but I did do another video some time ago, and so if you search my channel for AI, you should get, I think there's 3 AI videos that I've made. You should get those 3. You need to watch them perhaps in order to understand what I'm going to say, because I'm building on what I've already said, and it's a philosophical treatise. So you need to see it all. I'll make some coffee. Well, it was a bit bright the last video, so I hope you can see this. I don't know if you noticed, but I have a new hat on, and it did occur to me, I watched a video the other day of a sailing dude, and his hat blew off in the water. I think it was wildling sailing, and his hat blew off, and it was right at the end of his, all his trials and tribulations of getting this boat sailing that he's doing, and his hat fell off in the water. And I've had this happen to me a number of times, and it always happens at the appropriate point, because there's a time when you need a different hat, a bigger hat here, and so you lose your old hat, and it's only when I lose a hat generally that I get another hat. And in this case somebody gave me this hat, and so I didn't actually go out and get it myself, which is quite a nice way of getting a hat. You might find one, you never know. Somebody loses a hat, somebody finds a hat. Okay. Right, now I also wanted to say something about copyright before we start. Let's get the coffee going here. Okay, so this song that I was playing, you might not know this song. Bob Dylan says, "I have a song for every occasion." And it's true, yeah. And I also have a song for every occasion. I don't know where they come from. They just come into my mind as I need them. And I don't need to have written all these songs, because in actual fact the author of these songs is the same being. And that being has been given numerous names over time. It's generally called God. Okay, God is the source of creativity. And some call it the muse, and you'll find that any great artist, a real artist who's honest, an honest artist, will say, I don't know where this stuff came from, just came to me, yeah. And all of the best compositions come in this way. You can try to make a composition of music by copying what other people do, and it's possible to create inferior works of art this way, but real art is created by real artists, and it actually comes from God. So this is the definition of God, if you like, is where true creation comes from. Okay, and you'll see that in the Bible it says in the beginning, because there was nothing in the beginning and everything has been created. And we haven't created everything. We've created some stuff, And our things that we create from the fallen human condition are inferior creations. And only God can create perfection perfectly. And if a work of art shows perfection, then that shows that it's coming from the true source, the source of our being, and it's only this way that something can become perfect. And many of the creations that we have in the world are imperfect. And human beings are very imperfect, can be very imperfect. And so to get back to originally what I said was, where does this AI thing come from? Okay, it comes from imperfection. So if a person is not able to defend themselves properly and wants to pull the wool over the eyes of the justice system, okay, then what they would do is they would pay somebody to represent them in the court of law, right? This is the origin of AI. This is the first AI. And so the law became too complex. People were able to find ways around justice, okay? Because the world is a just place, as long as you don't have unjust laws, right? So as soon as you have unjust laws, then there's a way for injustice to appear in the world. And the first usage of AI was to appoint a representative for you to speak on your behalf. So human beings should really speak one-on-one. Okay, there should be no layer of authority between each human being. And so lawyers were created. They were trained in the intricacies of the law, in the intricacies of rhetoric. Rhetoric means to try to twist the truth, to persuade people that a lie is true or a truth is a lie. This is the art of rhetoric. Rhetoric, I'm not sure exactly how most people pronounce this. And so lawyers were born. They were trained. They were the first artificial intelligence. And I've never liked lawyers, and I've refused to have anything to do with lawyers, because lawyers are liars. That's basically what they are. And lawyers have allowed criminals, people who have murdered 10, 20, thousands of people to go scot-free, yeah, by lying using rhetoric. And so this is the origin of AI, to create a representative to put between you and the public. Yeah. And so that was the first one. And then managers of businesses found that they were being pestered by people. People would call them up or knock on their door, okay? And they didn't want to be bothered just being human, one human against another human. And so what they did was they appointed a private secretary, yeah? Donald Trump has one of these. Check her out. She's a strange person. She has there's no publicity about her, but there's nothing about her hardly in Wikipedia. And she had a fight with Ron DeSantis. But if you look at Ron DeSantis' page or her page, there's no mention of this in anywhere, because these people are artificially intelligently trained in public relations. Okay, so that's the next thing, public relations, another AI. Yeah? And so they are trained to eliminate from the public record all the mention of the truth that they don't want people to know. Okay. And so these professions, and their professions are not true arts, they're professions because people profess to be able to do these kind of things. It's a sort of an academic thing, really. And so academia arises to foster all these fake arts, all right, which are merely designed to put a barrier between a person and the truth or another person. Okay. I'm going to stop now because it's a very difficult subject, yeah? Well, this light is moving around. I hope it doesn't get my virtue. I have to close the curtains completely now. So, back to AI. Perhaps we need another song. Should we see if anything comes out? I walked 47 miles of barbed wire. I got a brand new stove for a necktie. I got a brand new house on the roadside, made from rattlesnake hide. I got a brand new chicken made on top, made out of a human skull. Come on, take a little walk with me out and tell me, who do you love? Yeah, right. I don't know if you saw the movie The Last Waltz featuring the band, but there's a guy in the movie, Screaming Jay Hawkins, his name is, and that's a song he plays on the band The Last Waltz. And this is a Screaming Jay Hawkins hat from observation, I suppose. Okay. Now, the bluesmen never copyrighted their songs, yeah, and in the 1960s there was a lot of these songs floating about that you could just play and say, not have to pay royalties on them. So a lot of the music that was created in the 1960s was these old blues songs sort of recycled and altered a little bit, new words added and so on. So these songs were the universal songs, and all songs are universal. All of the songs have the same chords. It just, as you move from one note to the next, a chord shape appears out of nature, okay? And so there's nothing new under the sun in music, really. And so to think that you can actually copyright a song, what's that song, Money for Nothing and Your Chicks for Free? This is what these people want. Instead of going out and playing a song and being paid for it, because this is actually an act of work. You work, you take your guitar, you play it, like I've just done now, play it for you. And this is an act of work. But to think that you should just get money, that I should make this video, for example, and then I should just get paid over and over and over again as people watch this video. Why? And that somebody should get paid nothing because the algorithm doesn't favour them, and somebody else should get paid millions. This is not justice. This is money for nothing. And so this whole area of copyright is something that is going to be examined, because that's why we have AI, to put the spotlight on this thing, because AI is stealing, according to the copyright people who agree that who think that copyright is a good thing. AI is stealing all that stuff, yeah. And it's true, it is taking it, but this is what musicians have done forever. Is they have always taken music that they've heard and reiterate it with different chords. You'll notice that Bob Dylan, for example, he doesn't necessarily play the same chord sequence for the same song because he can't remember the chords, yeah? He just plays whatever chords come to mind that go with what he's singing at that time, yeah? And so all the chord sequences is just an accompaniment for the voice, and all the voice is doing is speaking words. And the funny thing is that those words should change. it's not normal that the words remain the same always, unless there's some profound truth in the words that make those words continually meaningful. Yet, if the words become out of date, a true artist, a troubadour, will actually sing a different set of words. And I've found myself doing this. Whole new verses will just come out of the troubadour, yeah. And so, nothing's set in stone. And for a troubadour to be able to do his art, he needs to be free from the dread of copyright, the lie of copyright, because before there was recorded music, there was no copyright except people wrote down a complex series of notes, a whole schedules for all different instruments of the orchestra to, play together, so that 20-piece orchestra could play the same a piece of music together. Okay, and so there was a great deal of work involved in this, and it was right that people shouldn't just be able to take that and use it, okay, to their own advantage, to save them some money, because everything used to actually be performed. You had to get the orchestra together and perform the piece, and they'd have to train on the piece, and then they'd go out and perform it. And so there was a great deal of work in scoring it, and so whoever wrote the score, you got something whenever the orchestra played it. Okay, that's okay, yeah. But to think that you can, say, like this, say, how many roads must a man walk down? All you're doing is just saying, how many roads must a man walk down, yeah? Before AI hits him in the face, and anything can come out of a series of words, yeah? These are folk songs. You're dealing with a folk idiom, and there should be no copyright in folk idiom. Donovan put this thing forward. Donovan is being one of those artists that just absorbed folk music, and wherever he went, he wasn't listening to records and stuff like that. He was going to folk festivals and playing, and going to the next gathering of the people and playing, and he'd just play, and he'd listen to other people playing and hear what they were playing, and then he'd just reiterate. He was good enough, Donovan, to just hear something once, and he could just play that thing back to you if you wanted. And so, I can't remember which song it was, whether it was Blowing in the Wind or something like that, but it's one of these famous songs of Bob Dylan. He wrote a song, and it sounded like Bob Dylan's song, probably because he'd heard Bob Dylan's song somewhere, he didn't know where it came from, and it inspired him to create a similar song, yeah. And so Bob, he was a young artist at this time, he didn't like it that Donovan's song was similar to his song, had similar chord changes and things, so on. So he was criticised, Donovan was criticised for this. But Donovan was doing the troubadour thing, and the funny thing is Bob's songs have all been based on chord sequences that have been universally acknowledged and played in old songs from time immemorial, yeah. And you can change the chord sequences a little bit, you can shift them around, but the potential for what you can play from any point to any other point is fairly limited. The Beatles were probably the most advanced band as far as this was to produce completely new sounding songs, and I'm not sure 100% why that was the case with the Beatles, because it was the most unusual thing. Normally people don't do that. Normally people put simple common harmonic progressions together. They don't do all the complicated stuff that the Beatles used to do. And I don't know why the Beatles did that. Maybe because they needed to have their songs different for copyright reasons, yeah? Because the copyright was just getting started about then, to concern people were trying to make money out of other artists. And what about deceased estates? Now all of a sudden you've got the deceased estate of Elvis, or the deceased estate of Frank Zappa, trying to stop people from playing Frank Zappa's stuff, yeah, or playing Elvis's stuff, or recording it. And it doesn't belong to Elvis. Elvis is an ancestor in the heavens now, yeah. Whatever claim anybody had to his stuff is over and done with. Now, unless we get some common sense into the laws, into the legal system, we're finished. We're finished. And this is why AI has come along, because AI is here to teach us these things. The only time you need an AI is when the system becomes fake and too complicated. We used to write all our own programs in the computer information sector. We used to do all that. It was easy, yeah? Your operating system was simple. Your programming languages were simple and not changing every 5 minutes. And it was easy to write whatever you wanted to instruct the computer to do. And what has happened over the years is, instead of simplifying, throwing stuff out that's obsolete, and writing something from new, starting again from new, and making it better, and then throwing that out, starting again when that's obsolete, and each time simplifying. Instead of that, what we've done is we've built one kludge on top of another kludge. Microsoft Windows is a good example of that. It could never ever work, Microsoft Windows. Never did ever work. Everybody in the whole world has suffered from it because it's a kludge built on a kludge. And Linux is the same. Linux, I'm surprised that Linux works at all. Linux is built on something way before Microsoft Windows. Something from the product of probably the 1960s, certainly the 1970s. And which was Unix. And Unix was not widely admired in the profession. Yeah, it was something that was created at universities, and they didn't really have to use it in mission critical applications. It didn't come from a mission critical professional artistic base where the actual people doing the day-to-day programming and working with computers produced it. All the best stuff came from that sector, came from the sector of people actually doing the work, came from IBM, came from ICL, came from NCR, all these three-letter acronyms. These were the people who built the computers, and these were the people who built the first operating systems and the first programming languages. But Unix comes out of the academia, and so Unix is just like really complicated, big and complicated, and not easy to remember, not mnemonic, very, very difficult. Yeah, and so there's such a lot of stuff that's built on top of Linux. Now we've got Linux, which is Unix, and we've got everything built on top of it. And if you had to count on this computer here, which is running Linux, if you had to count how many files are on here from the operating system, it's millions, millions. It's completely over the top. It's completely over-engineered for laptop use. But it's just historically, it's been the easiest way for mankind to move forward, is to add more and more and more complexity, until it's got to the point now where the productivity in programmers is zero, pretty much zero. People can't deal with it anymore. And stuff changing at such a tremendous rate, the new technologies being poured on one on top of the other, and not just one or two technologies. The choice of 50, 100 different versions of every different piece of software that can possibly be combined together and put together. Yeah. And so, for information system professionals just to keep up to date with the movement in the industry and what's happening with AI, they have to spend their whole time not programming, not doing creative work, artistry, but just keeping up to date with the news and what's going on, and the new products appearing and so on. And whenever there's a problem, it can be in any of the layers of this software architecture. And so the people dealing with this stuff say, well, how are we going to get around this? Can we make something that sits on top of all that and does it for us? And so now, instead of writing a program, you're going to say to the AI, can you please create a program that does this, 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 and this? Well, that's going to have its own problems too. You know, the whole thing about AI is it's there to deal with something which shouldn't even be there. It's too complex. It should be gone. It should be rewritten from the ground up to be more suitable for purpose, to be better. It should be written by masters. It should be written by people like me, who should supervise the writing of new operating system software and stuff like that. But what happens is there's no place in the industry for old people, for old men. Old men. I was out of the computer industry by the age of 50. I was out. I couldn't get a job in it because they didn't want people who were bright and intelligent. They wanted new stuff. They wanted people who they could just pay small amount of money and tell what to do. Because you can't tell an old fellow what to do. It's not possible to do that. And so what we've got is we've got each generation building on the kludge of the previous generation. Now we've got AI built on the kludge of Linux. This DeepSeek has demonstrated that we can do things in a more intelligent manner. And it's interesting because the difference between China and the West is that China doesn't have different versions of everything. China is unified. It doesn't have two competing political parties, one fighting against the other, overthrowing all of the work that the one's done and replacing it with its own expertise, and then 4 years later throw all that out, replace it with the other. It doesn't have all that to deal with. And so it can build, quietly build, on top of everything it knows. Instead of going all crazy and making it all complicated, it can keep things simple. And so their AI is going to beat the Western AI because it already is. You know, there's so little complexity in their AI that it doesn't need huge, powerful supercomputers to train models on. The models can be trained on ordinary computers, yeah, that are in the price range of ordinary people. And that's because the complexity is less. And so there needs to be, there's less work for the computer to do. And we noticed this before we had Microsoft Windows. We had computers which just ran. They just ran just directly from what's called a command line. And there was also menu systems. You could choose what you wanted to happen in the menu system, and you know, they were pretty much like Windows, but they didn't have many windows open. They had just one or two. Yeah, they were much simpler beasts, and you would use the keyboard more than you wouldn't use a mouse. You'd use the keyboard more. Okay. It's time to stop. I'm getting a bit complicated there. Now the words have all been spoken, somehow the feeling still wasn't right, and still we continued on through the night. Tracing our step from the beginning until they vanish into the air, trying to understand how our lives had led us there. Looking hard into your eyes, there was nobody I'd ever known, just an empty surprise. so long. How long have I been sleeping? How long have I been reading along by the past? How long have I been hoping I can make it right? If I close my eyes and try to learn my mind to be the one you need. To be the one you need. To be the one you need. AI is built out of a need. A need to be able to cope amidst an overly complex world. And it's necessary to get back to simplicity, start to understand where we went wrong. Okay? And where we went wrong is our fundamental understanding of what creates happiness, the science behind happiness, what makes a person happy and what makes a person sad. And that's going to be the subject for my next series of videos, because I want to talk about what God is, how we know what God is, and how God operates in the world, and how God is responsible for whether we're happy or whether we're sad. I hope you join me on those next videos. Thanks for watching. As a postscript, I want to show you how I make my video that I just made. I don't use a video editor. I copied 4 videos, and we're going to edit them together. So what I do is I say I generate my file list. There. Okay, that makes this file list here. It makes the file list here. Okay, and then I go merge videos. Here it's going. And it's making the video, it's editing the videos and putting all those 4 videos together. Without me having to do anything, I can go and have a cup of coffee now, but it doesn't take long. It takes less time to render it than it ever would do using some video editor. If I used a video editor to do this work, it would take me hours. It's done, okay? Here's the resulting video that it just made. Okay? 32-minute video here. Okay? I hope you see how we've got so complex and everything could just be so simple.